I love stories about talent. And because of this love, Whiplash became one of my favorite movies. I thought it was a story about proving your self-worth, a story about perseverance, hard work, and the innate desire to make something of yourself, to be special by being good at something. But it's not enough to be good. You have to be great, and that's something to strive for.
Because I want to be great.
And you're not.
I want to be one of the greats.
A great movie that ends in the understanding of two people. The year was 2015, I was 18 at the time, and I thought, this is amazing! What an uplifting story. He sure showed him. Fast forward to a decade later, and man, this movie is horrific. I like stories about talent, but more accurately, I like stories about passionate people pursuing the thing they think will fulfill their lives. And this specific descriptor needs to be said because stories about talent can easily be misconstrued as why hard work is always good and why you should always try to be your very best. Which means a story about emotional abuse can get twisted into a lifestyle that you should aspire to. In the case of Whiplash, it's easy to interpret this movie as some kid proving this stubborn old fool wrong, never mind the fact that one of his students literally drove himself to ending their life, but you know, this just shows who the real winner is in life, right? He's a real winner, he's got the real gusto, he's not some loser or failure, he's willing to do anything to achieve his goal. He's one of the greats.
That I'm coming, you motherfucker!
Being great, being the best, and gaining prestige and becoming better at your craft is seen as this intrinsic good. It's a desirable thing to achieve, and if you have the talent to prove yourself, you should strive for it. Ambition is a good thing. Who wouldn't want to be the very best, like no one ever was? Who's the strongest? Who's the GOAT? Who could figure out the Akira case? If there is a metric of success to measure, people want to be on top, even if people have different definitions of what success is. Regardless, it's not hard to see the appeal. You've made your mark in history, you're showered with gifts and rewards, admired by people, and all that sort of stuff. Why not try to be the best at something and pursue your ambitions? And while we've all heard this mindset before, we've been inundated with a lot of stories that explore the pitfalls of ambition and the difficulties of chasing your dreams.
Can I just ask, why?
So, this guy Curly works in the circus for 30 years, following the elephants around with a big bucket, scooping up all the elephant shit. And at the end of every night, he has to burn it all. And one day his brother comes to him and says, Curly, great news! I got you a job at my office. Decent salary, you can work regular hours. And Curly goes, what? And quit show business?
To achieve your dreams, however you define this term, compromises must be made, whether it be at the cost of authenticity, genuine relationships, or morality. And when they do get what they want, a sudden twist happens, it wasn't what they expected, so they lash out at the world, distance themselves from the industry, or just figure out their life in another way. No matter how you take it, the successful seem miserable. Right, there's that too. Failing your dreams just seems like an embarrassing reality to confront.
Now I know what you're thinking. I don't want a career in fast food.
This is a quiet, frightened, insignificant old man who has been nothing all his life.
I want to be a comic artist and eventually launch my own manga-inspired webcomic.
Nobody knows him. Nobody quotes him.
And it's cool to have dreams, but you also need to remember that they're completely unrealistic, and you need to stop trying.
Gentlemen, that's a very sad thing to mean nothing.
What if your life parallels American Movie, or I'm thinking of ending things? Like, imagine being so full of passion but don't have the talent or community to achieve those dreams. You just seem like a fool. Or imagine already living a full life without achieving any of your personal goals. All you can do now is wallow and fantasize in the what could have been. This is a common feeling, so much so there's a whole market all about an average person possessing a talent all of a sudden, or being able to restart your life in another world. But this time, you're unique in some sort of way. But since we live in reality, better being depressed and successful instead of not being successful at all. Right?
You will make your movies, and you will do your art. Art will give you crowns in heaven and laurels on earth. But it'll tear your heart out and leave you lonely. You'll be a shanda for your loved ones, an exile in the desert.
So, being ambitious seems complicated and depressing. Are there any alternatives to this lifestyle? Cause like, I don't want to be like that guy over there. So, should we stop being ambitious? If you're already a Joe Parrot type of person, sweet, you've figured it out. But what if you are an ambitious and passionate person at your core? You can't exactly just flip a switch in your brain and become the dude from The Big Lebowski. Even when we're told the benefits of slowing down, how do the ambitious mentally convert to that? Can't you just be happy by doing good in the world?
Well, Homer, maybe you can take some consolation in the fact that something you created is making so many people happy.
Oh, look at me. I'm making people happy. I'm the magical man from Happy Land in a gumdrop house on Lollipop Lane.
There's a Thomas Flight video that explores this dichotomy, comparing the ambition we see in stories like The Bear and the more meditative experience of Perfect Days. It's a movie about a janitor who enjoys his simple, quaint life, with one of the main takeaways being that we should learn how to be in the moment.
今度ね。
今度っていつ？
今度は今度。今は今。
Did you know when you were there that it was special?
I don't know. I think I was always too busy to know all the time.
As nice as it would be to take in the scenery and admire the light passing through the tree leaves, personally, I can't alter myself to appreciate these things and enjoy them so suddenly, at least not as effortlessly as Hirayama. It feels so abstract and separated from my interests. In order to feel comfort and happiness in my life, do I have to fundamentally change who I am as a person? Do I have to toss my ambitions and my interests associated with it? What am I hoping to gain out of my ambition and achievements anyway? Why the pursuit of more and better? What if I hit a glass ceiling? What if my best isn't enough? Should I quit? Is this considered defeat? Isn't this gonna make me miserable? What's more miserable, to devote your life to a goal and never reach it, or to give up after trying for so long? When it comes to stories that revolve around the ambitious, I feel like they're supposed to be in some way relatable. I may not be reaching for Michelin star level success, but the experience of wanting to pursue something lofty, thinking it would fulfill or fix an aspect of my life, is something I and many others probably relate to. But the constant exposure to these stories make me feel like the ambitious have few lifestyles to live. You either do have the talent with an ambition you can't turn off, so you must deal with the inevitable bad that comes with it, or your lack of talent can't match your ambition, so you get ridiculed. Worst case scenario, you go mad and, hurt someone.
Get what you f***ing deserve!
Please, I'm a star!
Now, to be fair, there are stories about ambitious people that end on a positive note. It's just, by the end of most of them, the protagonist is undeniably good at what they do, so much so that the status quo shifts. They manage to prove everyone wrong with their talent, or defied conventional wisdom and are considered talented in their own special way. Or they could have totally won the competition, but they decided to do the right thing in the end. Insecure about your own abilities? Worry not, you'll eventually find that thing that makes you stand out. Even something like Soul, a film trying to say appreciate the beauty of life, has a protagonist who is talented at what they do. He could have gone farther, but decides it wasn't for him. So, could have he reached this epiphany if he never got the gig? What if he was mediocre? Can the average Joe find joy in a hobby with dreams he'll never achieve?
おかしいよね。 才能ないのに野球のことばっか考えてさ。
Whether a person's ambition is an unavoidable misery or an unquestioned good, I feel like being exposed to only these stories creates a specific mindset. If the stars align, you'll end up believing that being exceptional is considered the bare minimum, where anything below groundbreaking or award-winning is an unfulfilled life. So what are some stories that can broaden this way of thinking?
おかしいよね。才能ないのに野球のことばっか考えてさ。
おかしくはないよ。
そうか。
Why not a story about a guy who has no big ambitions, much like Hirayama, but still has a dedicated craft he pursues, and this craft is more of a way to figure out some simple yet complicated feelings? Or a story where natural talent isn't necessarily a gift, where one's goals don't exactly align with the blessings they were given at birth? Actually, what are some stories that treat talent as a neutral thing to understand? Like, why must the talented have to be ambitious? Can't it be enough to acknowledge one's talents, or lack thereof, and let it be? Why must we build ourselves up into something supposedly better that doesn't align with who we are? Can't I just be okay with where I'm at? Can't I just be mediocre?
卓球に人生かけるなんてナンセンス。理解に苦しむ。君が悪い。
This is Ping Pong the Animation, a manga adaptation by Science Saru, the studio that brought you Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, Keeps Your Hands Off Aizoken, Devilman Crybaby, Don Da Don, and this episode of Adventure Time. And what makes Ping Pong special to me is that it feels like one of the most sobering yet optimistic stories about talent and passion, as it tackles the perception of what these things promise us. And it does this by making its most important story beats center around the losses of players, tackling why loss is important and why loss provides perspective. At least, more so than other sports anime I've seen. Winning and outsmarting your opponent seems to be a big draw. It lends itself well to our protagonists putting the lessons they've learned in practice to achieve victory. The explanations, the theatrics, the how and why one guy or team is better than the other. Swap out the sport with fighting and it's basically an action shonen. Whether you want to be the best volleyball player or be Hokage, most of it seems to fall in line with the mentality we're all familiar with. Learning and getting better is always an intrinsically good thing. Whereas with Ping Pong, there are theatrics and brilliantly animated scenes, but there aren't special moves. There isn't a focus on the how and why someone wins on a technical level, because the specifics of how one wins a match is irrelevant. Because winning and losing isn't treated as a black and white good or bad thing. Rather, Ping Pong prefers to focus on the why. Why are they playing ping pong? What are they getting out of it? Why devote your life to it? At its core, the show asks, who do you play table tennis for? So there's this minor character in this show, so minor in fact, that he doesn't interact with the rest of the main cast beyond one match. He's just some random player matched against one of the main characters. He's a third-year student who wants to go to nationals, and boy howdy, he's gonna make it this time. This is his year. This is his final year to achieve his dream, and you know what? He loses. Reality sinks in.
現実はいつだって俺には冷てえや。秋っぽい俺にはよく続いたよ。ネクラにコツコツ3年間。海行くか、それも悪くね。
So, he visits the beach, in search of something. But every time he arrives at a destination, be it the beach, the mountains, or somewhere abroad, he thinks about visiting the next place where he thinks he'll belong. But he never does. A year has passed since his match, and his journey takes him back to where he lost. He can no longer play this year's tournament, but he can at least spectate. And upon witnessing an amazing match between the main characters we've been following, he breaks down with a realization.
まあ言ったな。俺卓球好きじゃんよ。お前から離れたあちこち巡ってきたけんど、俺ずっとお前を探してた。ごめんな。許してくれっか。 もう一回一からやらせてくれっか。今度こそお前を離さねえかんよ。
This is basically the journey that every main character of Ping Pong goes through. Through loss, perspective is gained and a better understanding of yourself is earned, and it's a matter of what you do next once you've gained this insight. So, who do you play ping pong for? Perspective and understanding become a core part of ping pong because the default assumption as to why anyone pursues a hobby is to become great. Or at the very least, you do it because you're pretty good at it. Because otherwise, it's a waste of your time and worthy of ridicule, which is how the show depicts it.
あんな単純な回転に引っかかんなよ。フォーケ。おーい、悪魔やい。スマイル叩くなよ。でもよ、ペコ。こいつってば全然ダメな。まるでうまくならねえんだよ。
Growth is considered good.
君の才能は腐る。
小泉先生はこのこと。
彼も賛成していたよ。君の将来を考えればベリークレバーなアイデアだと。
Talent attracts talent.
気に障ったのなら謝るよ、ミスター月本。しかし昔取った杵塚で指導するには君の場合、少し私の手に余る。あちらに行けば君も伸び伸びできるだろうと。
Stagnation is wasted potential.
要怪就怪你周围的环境，没对手，没教练，没压力，在这个温室般的环境里，你只能废掉，就像被扔在河边的自行车一样。
So while growth is always framed as a good thing, this unfortunately insinuates that failing to grow, despite active efforts, is a sign of a failure. A person could spend hours, days, or months lovingly crafting something, but that time spent can instantly feel invalidated by your lack of progress. If you've failed to improve as quickly as someone else, or lack the other skills that require your innate talents to flourish, or are blinded by whatever expectation you've given yourself, failure, or being perceived as a failure, makes you question your own worth. To lose feels wrong.
勝つことが全ての時代さね。負けた選手は人格まで否定される。勝てば官軍、負ければ賊軍。そういう精神が生み出した挫折を随分見てきた。
今も変わらないけどね。
So I find this brutal and competitive depiction of being a part of a hobby accurate. If you're bad or mediocre at something, yeah, whatever, to each their own, as long as you enjoy yourself, yada yada yada. But if you are good at the thing, if someone has told you that you possess talent or are known to be a hard worker, then you should refine your craft because that's considered a good thing. And good means being good at the thing you're doing, which leads to optimizing your life around being good. It's good to improve, it's good to go up, because up and higher is better than lower and lesser. On the up and up or on the decline? Are you upbeat or down in the dumps? Are you an upstanding citizen or a lowlife? To fall short is to fail. Bigger and higher is always better, and the end goal is to be on top, to be the best.
人間の反応時間の限界は 0.1 秒。そこへ可能な限り近づくことで卓球の極致に至る。
Okay, sounds simple enough. Don't suck, don't stagnate, and always try to be the best, especially if you are talented in something. If you can win, why not win? If you have a rare ability people are envious of, why would you not try to strive for greatness? Because, as we're told, being great comes at a price. And here's how Ping Pong depicts it.
何度も聞きますが、どうして僕だけ違うメニューなんですか？
君が他と違う選手だからだよ。見下げてんのな、俺らのことを。バカみてえに試合するのも、うちにろくな練習相手がいねえからさ。おかげで俺らは奴のレベルに合った学校と打ち合うわけで、王子様はお一人で連勝街道を突っ走っておいでだがな。もうこの部にチームなんて存在しねえ。
トレーニングの効果を考えればその方がいいし、実力向上が望めると思います。間違ってますか、僕の話。
整合性の問題じゃねえの。ムカつくのお前。
あいつうまいんだしさ、浮いてていいんじゃね？
はあ。
卓球で飯食ってくようなやつと高校生活を彩るための部活をやってる俺らが噛み合うわけないじゃん。
The show makes it explicit that being good means you're different. The mere act of being really good has characters be seen as robotic, monstrous, and emotionally hard to be around, whether it's through jealousy or their inability to commit to a normal relationship. Sometimes the price of winning means hurting a friend and ruining their dreams.
君なら撃てたかね。旧友の傷に釘を突き立てるような弾を。選手生命を奪う危険なコースにさ。君なら撃てたか?
So does Ping Pong as a show have a problem with the talented? Does it view people in the top percentile as lonely monsters who stepped on every neck possible to stand atop an overrated pedestal that is pointless due to the absurdity of life?
卓球に人生かけるなんてナンセンス。理解に苦しむ。君が悪い。
No, not at all. Ping Pong is not about hating the people who strive for greatness. Rather, it's about being critical of people who lack perspective, critical of people who don't understand themselves. And in order to explain that, we can finally talk about our main characters, Smile and Peko. And this is where we'll get into beat-for-beat spoiler territory, so skip ahead or watch another video if you're concerned about that sort of stuff. This is Peko. Peko is the hero of the story. He's also an arrogant, cocky kid with a natural knack for table tennis. His dream? To compete in the Olympics, to become world champion. And due to his natural talent, he thinks hard work is something that the untalented have to do to get on his level. It's a self-admission of your own inferiority.
努力なんて才能のないやつがするもんさ。
This is Smile. Smile is Peko's best friend.
おめえもガムいる？
いらない。
今頃1年、大谷外周やらされてるかな？
多分。
お前と一緒だとほんと楽しいよ。会話も弾むしね。
He's been playing with Peko since they were kids, and are now first-year starters for the high school ping pong club they attend to. Others immediately recognize their talent. But the main difference between Peko and Smile is that while Peko wants to be ping pong champion, Smile just doesn't care about winning.
暇つぶしなんです。卓球も英単語覚えるのも。どうせ死ぬまでの暇つぶしですから。
He literally pulls his punches just to make matches even, as the show tells us that Smile is way more talented than Peko. Anyone who's just as talented as him recognizes that. But despite Smile's disinterest in winning, the world around him is pushing him to keep on getting better as a player, and his disinterest in winning is seen as a fault to fix.
いずれあの子は怪物に化ける。さなぎの体ははち切れそうだ。私はただそっと彼の背中を押してやればいいんだよ。ミスター月本は明日から毎朝5時に私とトレーニング。勝負への執念に欠けるというウィークポイントをインハイまでに克服します。ノータッチで抜かれるな。なぜ攻めない。ミスを待つな。行くんだそこで。何度言わせる。やる気あるのか。
What Smile as a character explores is how people perceive the talented who don't take advantage of their gifts. The belief that if you're not using your talents, then there's something wrong with you. You'll be pestered and be reminded about why you're wasting your talents away for no good reason. So while Smile literally has no interest in winning, he submits to this life because he's told to. People tell him he's wrong, so he turns into a machine. By submitting to his coach's demands, people now gawk at his ability and are impressed by his precision. He's better than ever, but all this improvement seems pointless to him. He isn't happier because he's better. All this training does is just bother him.
なんだか最近疲れるよ。人間関係とか。卓球にしても。どんどん複雑に、単純じゃなくなってくる。
Smile knows who he is, and becoming a better player hasn't altered anything. He knew this as early as episode 1, but by complying to everyone's demands, this reinforces and reminds him of a bothersome past.
どうしてみんな僕に構うの？何もしてないのに、怒ってもないのに、笑ってもいないのに、ただいるだけなのに、息も殺してる。 言われたことだけ静かにロボットみたいにしてるのに。
Throughout the series, we see flashbacks of Smile being locked in a cabinet as a kid. Being an awkward fellow, he's been the subject of bullying, as other children tease him by calling him a robot, and all he asks for is for a hero to come out and save him. The show then uses this as an ongoing parallel with how people treat him in the present. Instead of childish mockery, it's expectations. Smile being told that he's a robot, a machine, whether as an insult or a compliment, boxes him in as a person and creates an expectation that he can't escape from. Therefore, machines must win. But despite all this, he isn't a robot. He's still a kid. He can't change who he is at his core.
ちったおめえには厳しすぎっけど、小泉のコーチングは的を得てんと思うよ。
違うんだペコ。僕は楽しければいい。面白ければ十分。勝つために何かを犠牲にしたり、引きずり下ろしたりしたくないんだ。
So when there's a situation where he knows others may benefit from his loss, he purposely loses a match, only to be punished for this.
大して勝つ気もないやつが冷やかしで打つんじゃないよ。やめるか卓球。
やめます。
そうしろ。
要するにアマちゃんなんだよ。勝ってなんぼだぜ。
So the mere act of existing, the mere act of being himself, leads to disapproval. It makes sense why Smile never smiles. It makes sense why he calls for a hero. So, who is this hero he calls for? I already told you. It's Peko. So, how is Peko the hero? Isn't he the arrogant, cocky kid who believes that winning is everything? How does Peko save Smile? He doesn't seem equipped for the job. And he isn't. But the Peko we meet in episode 1 and the hero he ends up becoming are completely different people. And the difference between Peko now and the hero he becomes is their motivations. So we know that Peko just plays to win, right? Because that's the only way he can have fun, and it's the reason why Smile holds back when he's playing against Peko. An empathetic Smile thinks, why win if it just makes Peko upset? Which leads to this stagnation in Peko's ability. He's so behind that he doesn't even realize that Smile has been holding back, while others can see and hear their skill gap. And this stagnation is a direct result of his narrow-minded beliefs. He can't grow if no one pushes him to improve. So this then leads to Peko encountering some harsh realities. Someone who isn't as kind as Smile is gonna put Peko in his place, which inevitably happens. But it's through loss is how Peko transforms into a hero. This is Kong and Sakuma. Like Peko, they're both arrogant and full of confidence, but unlike Peko, they possess a trait that's completely alien to him: determination. Or more precisely, they're both willing to put in the effort to get results. They together break Peko's mind, despite having very different motivations. Let's dive right into them. Kong is a Chinese player who's been kicked off of the national Chinese team due to his lacking performance, and is now momentarily in Japan to help improve his school's ping pong program. He's not interested in this task at all. He thinks he's above all this. He sees being in Japan as a punishment.
早知道就应该看清自己的实力，退了算了。
So, Kong is motivated to go back home since he thinks that's where he belongs. That's where he grew up, spent his life training, and where his mom lives. He's got a natural talent for table tennis, so he wants to be accepted by his country, by his home, by having his efforts be recognized. And this mentality causes him to be arrogant and entitled, conveying that anything that isn't China is not worth his time. So he really takes it out on Peko, this person who was stupid enough to request a match against him, so he puts him in his place.
你反手无力，正手不精，脚步松散，反应迟钝，每一个动作像样，要让你知道自己是多么的弱小，多么的无能。
Now onto Sakuma. He is the opposite to Peko. He's not naturally talented, but he is an incredibly hard worker. Nicknamed Professor Table Tennis by Peko, Sakuma represents the guy who really puts in the work to get on the same level of those who possess natural talent. He's the Rock Lee of this series, but he's fueled with spite. This spite comes from wanting status, as he ties one's self-worth to expertise. If you're good at something, you're worth something. As shown here, he bullied a young Smile for being bad at ping pong while praising Peko for his talents. But his admiration ends up warping into jealousy, especially when Peko teased Sakuma for studying. So, Sakuma worked really hard to match and then even surpass Peko out of pure spite. So, who'll win this match? A guy who puts in the effort to be the best version he can be, or the naturally talented guy who hasn't progressed since he was a kid?
Match 2, Sakuma 選手。
ペコ、お前に一ついいことを教えてやんよ。絶対負けない唯一の方法はだな、戦わないことだ。惰性で打つなら足洗えよ、ペコ。うろちょろされんと目障りだがんな。くそ
So, the guy who thinks winning is everything must measure his own self-worth against an expectation he's created for himself.
努力なんて才能のないやつがするもんさ。
Time to face reality. He couldn't score a single point against Kong, and Sakuma defeated him through sheer hard work. This loss shatters Peko's entire worldview. He stops playing ping pong, falls into a depressive slump, and finds different ways to waste his days. Anything but ping pong. Just a reminder, these arrogant cocky dudes aren't ping pong's way of saying ambition is the villain, stop being ambitious. While these characters feel like antagonists because of their ambitions, they themselves aren't meant to be bad people, nor is the story telling them that their feelings are invalid. Rather, the show examines the why of their ambitions, and how having certain motivations leads to self-destructive paths. Despite their successes, their own mental state becomes their own antagonistic force. Sakuma's ambition is motivated by envy, with his lack of self-worth denying the reality of things, while Kong's motivation stems from wanting to go home to a country that doesn't really appreciate him. And then there's this character called Kazuma. I'll leave him for later. While these are relatable desires, how they're going about their feelings is misguided and self-destructive. While they all worked hard to get where they are right now, what they strive to achieve won't improve their lives in a way they think it will. Let's start with Sakuma. Sakuma was born with a strong astigmatism, and the story parallels his astigmatism with his lack of talent, using his poor vision as a metaphor for the natural disadvantage he must overcome in life. He can't see things other people see, therefore, he can't do things that other people do, no matter how hard he tries. But he does everything he can to overcome his deficits. He goes to the best school, Kaio Academy, he admires the best player in the country, Kazuma, who also goes to Kaio Academy, and aspires to be just like him. So, through sheer hard work, he ends up being around some of the best in the country in the best school. But he didn't get in because he was good. He got in because he was persistent. He's here out of pity.
今時珍しい子が一年坊にいるんだ。先鋒やってる子なんだが、スカウトしたわけじゃなく、むしろ入部させることすら強く反対した。君が苦しむことになるからと散々断ったが、風間先輩のようになりたくて海王に来たのだと、頑として聞かん。いずれはマネージャーにでもと思って渋々取ったんだが、こいつが10やれと言えば100でも1000でも続けるような男だった。しかし卓球は素質が大きく物言う競技だ。龍一を目指すには無理がありすぎる。でも父さん、そいつが好きでな。可愛くて仕方なかったよ、ほんと。
So, Sakuma's lack of talent looms over him, and everyone knows that. Him especially. This is best highlighted during an unofficial match with Smile. Flashbacks to Sakuma's memories related to his vision are played right next to him yelling, "Where did I go wrong?" frustrated with how effortlessly Smile is beating him.
5 ラブ
前なんだよ。一体どうして。俺は努力したよ。お前の10倍、いや100倍、1000倍したよ。風間さんに認められるために、ペコに勝つために。それこそ朝から晩まで卓球のことだけを考えて、卓球に全てを捧げてきたよ。なのに。
それは悪魔に卓球の才能がないからだよ。単純にそれだけのことだよ。大声で騒ぐほどのことじゃない。
Sakuma represents the person whose talents don't match their ambitions, whose jealousy may get the better of them, driven by their desire to prove the world that he can be as good as others, worthy of status, thinking that sheer hard work is enough to rival the greats. But that's not the case. There are people who work as hard as him, but also possess talent. He's willing to work hard to imitate someone else because he doesn't want to accept the reality of who he is. He didn't do anything wrong, he did everything he could. It's just, some people are born less talented, and that's a harsh reality to face. Now let's hop onto Kong. His talents and hard work far surpass the average player, since he has a lot on the line to lose. Being kicked out of his national team is an existential threat that creates a rift between what he considers home. While he does have a sympathetic backstory, the story directs your attention to how he treats others around him, at least initially. This isn't a playful cockiness like Peko. His cockiness stems from entitlement, and he feels like this entitlement needs to be upheld to validate his own beliefs. Japan is a punishment, and the only way to win back his pride is through demolishing it. Japan is what separates him from home, literally and metaphorically. It's the reason why the imagery of planes in the sky is shown throughout his games. They represent home and the desire to go home, and the frustration of home being so far away. And losing means losing the country he dedicated his life to, and to lose to people that aren't even Chinese would be humiliating. That's why he justifies his own arrogance. That's why he thinks he's above them, because if he wasn't above these Japanese players, that means he has no home to return to. He'd be unworthy, and that's what Kong's story is about. Finding a place to belong and the fear of losing it. The fear of not being successful enough to care for his mom? Why would you want to confront that reality? But while these planes feel like they're within reach, he later finds out there are two people that clearly surpass him, Smile and Kazuma. While Smile is empathetic to Kong's motivation and discreetly lets Kong win, Kazuma destroys Kong.
全力以赴，那才叫尊重对手。
Match 2, Kazama 選手。
It's a brutal defeat, probably because Kazuma wanted it to be brutal.
私はね、月本君、君のプレーが嫌いだ。確かに技術は素晴らしい。だが、相手の心情を考慮して打つ君の卓球は実に醜い。
Now, if we were to subscribe to the belief that to lose is to fail, then Kong and Sakuma have failed in life. This is the part in Amadeus where our jealous fella kills the man more talented than him, or Whiplash where we gotta sacrifice even more of ourselves to be great. But Ping Pong uses losing as an opportunity for self-reflection. It doesn't tell you to work harder if you lose, it merely asks you, what am I getting out of winning? In Kong's case, he desires to return to what he considers home. But does China have to be home? Especially with how dismissive his team was with his efforts. But it is the same country that has his mom and his favorite wonton she makes. What can be done? After his loss against Kazuma, he decides to stay in Japan since he's too ashamed to fly back to China. With the desire to return gone, the series slowly shows him opening up to the Japanese students and enjoying their company. Officially there to train the students of the school he was recruited by, he decides to stay doing just that. Kong goes from wanting to train alone to celebrating the holidays with his teammates. Even better, his mother comes to visit to celebrate the holidays with him and the team, providing her love and hospitality to everybody. So his mom loved him no matter what. Sweet. The entire team even helps out with making the wontons that Kong is so fond of. The harsh and elitist Kong that once called his teammates practice folk dancing has now found a community that accepts him for who he is. While the other main characters are training by themselves or are lost in their depression, Kong is singing karaoke with his newfound friends. Despite not getting on the plane back to his home country, he has now found a new home. A home that appreciates him. And he loves it. The show reaffirms Kong's belief. It says Kong's correct in his worries of losing a place to call home, but it was just a matter of discovering what home means to him. Turns out, his desire to go back to China wasn't necessarily because China is the place to be. He just wanted a place to belong, and while table tennis allowed him to get where he is right now, there is more to life than table tennis. Thanks to losing, his life has just begun.
文革呀，你的人生刚刚开始，现在才刚刚走到起跑线上。
我已经不想再……
哎，我说的不是打球，是说人生呢。
Now, what about Sakuma? What does he learn? Self-acceptance. Reality. See, the only reason he pursued this match is a way to prove he's of greater worth than Smile, since his idol wanted to recruit some guy Sakuma bullied as a kid. So this match means a lot to Sakuma, while Smile couldn't care less. The show portrays how toxic Sakuma's need for validation is. Unlike Kong or Peko, it isn't even motivated by a positive emotional connection. Sakuma doesn't have anything to lose. If anything, he's willing to risk his own career just to make a point. Kaio's rule about unofficial matches is that players must resign from the club if they lose, so he's basically a samurai saying, if I can't beat Smile, I may as well be dead. Spite and status were his reasons to win, and his loss against Smile made him self-destruct, causing him to go off and beat up people out of pure frustration. He's suspended from school and no longer on the team. While a violent end to Sakuma's ping-pong career, this is exactly what Sakuma needed. By dropping the sport, he no longer has a place to grow his spite and jealousy. He has time to foster something new and, hopefully, do something that's more rewarding for him. Basically, he becomes beach guy and comes to a conclusion about himself. Some birds can't fly, and that's okay. To quote the show, it didn't take long for me to accept my lack of talent. Now that I've accepted it, I'm relieved. Perspective helps too. Perspective, what I can see now that I'm out of the running. And this perspective allows him to open up and be honest about his feelings, particularly his admiration for Peko, and how Peko is wasting away his talent. While the cast of Ping Pong both shine a light on Peko and Smile's efforts, it only has an issue with Peko, because his unwillingness doesn't come from disinterest. He isn't Smile. Peko possesses both the talent and the desire to win. He loves table tennis more than anyone else, but his fear of failure is what's stopping him from emotionally maturing. I can't get any joy from losing, I simply have to win. My cells are dying, the impulses are slowing. I used to be strong, I had never even considered someone might be stronger than me. So while Sakuma found peace by stepping away from table tennis, what can Peko do to achieve the same thing? What Ping Pong does is essentially create a matrix with these categories. Are you or are you not talented, and are you or are you not interested in putting in the work? Regardless of where you stand, one isn't inherently better than the other, since the show treats each square of equal value. However, what the show values most is the why, and moving forward with a better understanding of yourself. It's about perspective. And what causes Peko to broaden his perspective wasn't Sakuma's talk or the near-death experience he had after he jumped off a bridge, but a certain portrait. This is your last chance to leave before I spoil everything else in this show. So, what convinces Peko to come back playing table tennis? What other purpose is there in ping pong if you can't win? What changes Peko's mind, this arrogant fool who can't seem to think about anything else that doesn't concern himself? It's a picture of a smile, and he's smiling.
笑わないからスマイルじゃなくて、卓球やってる時 笑ってたからスマイルって呼んだんだ。あいつはもうずっと長いこと俺を待っている。ずっと長いこと俺を信じている。あいつが笑わんくなったんは、おいらの卓球がしょっぱくなってたから。気がついてたけど知らんふりしてた。ビビって必死に耳塞いでたさ。でも、そろそろ言ってやんねえと。
And because of this, Peko realizes something. Table tennis is fun. Now, I like how simple and straightforward this reveal is. Peko, despite his arrogance and selfishness, is someone who cares for his friend, and Peko seeing how much Smile enjoyed himself in the past made something click in his mind. The way the story uses Peko's empathy as a way to push down his own personal insecurities is smart to me, since it broadens his perspective while remaining consistent with his ambitious goals. This picture makes him realize ping pong isn't just fun for me, it's fun for my friend too. And I want to save him. Just remember though, Peko is still Peko.
Peko, スマイルのために打つのかい？
ちげえよ、ババ。おいらがヒーローだからっしょ。そこんとこよろしく。
But in order to save Smile, he has to get on his level. Smile shouldn't have to hold back, so our guy starts training. He sheds his belief that hard work is for chumps and starts asking people for help. And that's mostly it. There's no grand journey Peko takes. It was all mental. He could always do this. It's that his stubbornness blocked him from what he's really capable of. Some people are just super talented, and Peko's one of them. And with that closed-mindedness gone, he can now work his way through this year's Inter-High tournament to reach Smile, which has him go against Kong and Kazuma. And thankfully, he's no longer the boy he once was.
覚えてるか、あなた。私と初めて試合したあなた。1点取れない。私から。
シェーシェーだぜ、コンさん。あんたのおかげで、おいら一つ強くなることができたよ。あんたはおいらに飛び方を教えてくれた。
Where Peko was initially skunked by Kong during their first match, this second match has the opposite happen. And the biggest difference? No sore losers, just two players who now have mutual respect for each other.
风剑就交给你了。
Match 2! 星野選手!
Now onto Kazuma. Kazuma is the embodiment of table tennis, the ideal athlete in every aspect, but whose motivations run on fear. The fear of upholding the Kazuma family name. This is because his grandfather is the president of Kaio Academy, who also runs Poseidon, a big business that specializes in table tennis gear. He is literally the face of ping pong, and to be anything other than number one is considered a failure. Failure means weakness, and he is told to never show weakness to the world. This is a mentality instilled by his grandfather, a lesson he took to heart after Kazuma's father's passing. He was a businessman too, but was nowhere near as successful as his grandfather, and the emotional toil of his failing flower business led him down an unfortunate path. When his mother's side took over the business, he and his family were mocked and ridiculed for continuing the flower shop. But it was only when his grandfather found out that Kazuma was good at ping pong was when his opinion of his grandson started to shift. The more he accomplished, the less people could mock Honori's family. He's trying to carry his family, school, and manufacturer on his shoulders. Now couple that with this mentality.
険しい山を一歩一歩登るのだ。下には深淵が広がり、終わりはない。登り続けるしかないのだ。とにかく佐久間の抜けた穴。あ？その人材を見つけることこそ我々の急務だよ。
たく、泣くな。男が泣くところを人に見せるな。人に弱みを見せるな。すぐに足元を救われる。
ちょっと待たんかいくら。そげん話聞いて佐久間がどげん思いばしおろうかのう。あ？わしらと苦楽ば共にしてきよった佐久間がのう。
その憐憫が我が海洋卓球部の名門復活にどう役立つのかと問いたい。
人前で泣くな。敗北は死を意味すると思え。妥協は腕を切り落とすに等しい。 勝利の中にのみ真実がある。勝て龍一。家族のため、海王のため、ポセイドンのため、勝て。
勝利を望むのであれば、それを成し遂げるための努力が必要だ。
風間さんに言わせればそうなのでしょうが。
誰に言わせても同じだよ。
A young Kazuma cries alone in the bathroom at the loss of his father, a habit that continues to this day. It's how he hides his weakness, to hide what he truly feels to the world. Sakuma approaches him in the stall for the first time since he left the team. Their conversation ends with, "Who do you play table tennis for?"
無論自分のため。
冗談言わないでください。今のが本音なら俺だって何も。
人は空など飛べない。飛べるはずもない。
Flying as a metaphor has been used a lot in this show, from representing growth, returning home, or talent. And in Kazuma's case, he's stuck on the fact that people can't fly due to his father's last words. Birds have it good. They can fly even higher than this mountain. Do you think they've been watching the unsightly wars down below on the ground since before there were planes? I wish I'd been born a bird. For Kazuma, to fly is to escape one's troubles, to unburden yourself from the problems of reality, to get away from the unsightly wars down below. And his father couldn't do that, at least not in a way where he could still be around. To leave like that is to admit you're weak, a failure. You will be seen as lesser. To live is to face reality, and reality is a burden that must be won, and it must be won alone. His mom says to him, among relatives, certain rules must be upheld, while his grandfather says, don't think anyone can help you. No one will save you. If you don't want to get bullied, you have to get stronger. Kazuma has a mentality similar to Sakuma, the talent of a gold medalist and the burden of a legacy he needs to uphold. A legacy that's been starting to slip. And all that's caused him is misery. You'll eventually learn the anguish of invincibility, the pain of praise, the pressure of burdens, isolation, and agony. Eventually, you will feel like hard work is pointless and victory fruitless. Kazuma represents the toxic hustle of being the best, favoring results over relationships. That vulnerability is a risk not worth taking because your well-being is a liability. The mindset that winning is worth emotionally choking yourself for, not because you want to, but because you have to. Your self-worth is measured by results, where victory isn't cause for celebration, but a sigh of relief. So, don't lose or else be ridiculed and be seen as weak. Being the best, not because you want to be the best, is a miserable experience. I imagine table tennis brings him only pain. So, how does Peko end up saving Kazuma? How does he convince Kazuma that people can fly? It's simple. He has fun. It may seem almost anticlimactic when I say it like that, especially with how burdened Kazuma's heart is, but hear me out. Peko's pure joy and excitement ends up reminding Kazuma why he even plays ping pong in the first place. It was his dad. His play reminded him of his dad. While his dad praised and even acknowledged Kazuma's skills, a flashback emphasizes these words. Are you having fun? Both players got into this hobby for the fun of it, and now they're bonding over this newfound childlike experience that they thought they've forgotten about. And this entire scene is underscored with the hero's song, a song made up by Smile back when he was a kid. It's been hummed by Smile here and there during the present, but it just sounds like a guy awkwardly humming. It's nothing special. Even Peko doesn't even know where the song's from. But when we finally hear the full version during this match, it represents that playful earnestness that Peko was missing has been rediscovered. He remembers the song and remembers the fun of not just winning, but playing. To go against someone strong shouldn't feel like a threat, it should feel fun for Peko. That's when Peko is at his peak, even with a knee injury. The match that initially Kazuma led by 2 sets has Peko catch up with his newfound energy, and Kazuma reacts in turn by being so absorbed by Peko's playstyle that the fear of failure no longer clouds his mind. It's a close match where both parties are no longer thinking, they're just playing. And unfortunately for Kazuma, This is Pecco's territory, and through this match, Kazuma ends up dismantling every belief he's held. A hero can only rely on his own strength, and people can't fly. But through Pecco's help, through failing, countless victories now pale in comparison to this euphoric failure. He finally realizes, even if it's just for a moment, people can fly. I think the biggest takeaway from Ping Pong is that understanding oneself is more important than the success that comes from being a narrow-minded winner. It gets explicit with its message pretty early on too. Here's a quote. "Talented people who know exactly who they are don't seek anything. Those who don't know who they are, they're the ones who struggle the hardest to win in order to prove something." And this tracks with the characters of this narrative, where directionless ambition driven by fear, envy, pride, and wrath led every character astray. Except for one, Smile. He always knew what he wanted, he always knew what he needed, all he had to do was wait for his hero, and he finally arrived. In a world that forced Smile to be a robot through insults and expectations, Pecco saw him as a person and made him feel seen. Pecco understood him and showed that he is human. Pecco didn't see a robot, he saw a friend. He saw Smile, and much like he did back then, Pecco saves him. This is the only time when a match's score is never shown or said. It's just pure ping pong. It's just two dudes having a ball. It's just two dudes hanging out. It's just two dudes pushing each other to the limit. Smile isn't holding back anymore. He's going all in. He even goes for Pecco's knee because he knows for a fact that Pecco is gonna win. And as memories of Smile and Pecco's relationship play out, we have Smile say, "I want to be just like Pecco." Not because Pecco was talented or the best, but because he loved ping pong more than anyone else. He just wanted to have fun. And just like all the other characters, Smile's climax doesn't come from him winning a game. Winning isn't important. The show merely asks, who do you play for? Smile plays for Pecco. Smile plays for fun. But what did Smile learn? Being the most self-assured out of everybody, did Smile actually learn anything out of this entire experience?
卓球に人生かけるなんてナンセンス。理解に苦しむ。君が悪い。
Actually, yeah, he does learn something. Remember this quote here? This is from Butterfly Joe, Smile's coach. Now, this might sound a bit hypocritical, coming from the coach berating Smile to keep on training despite his lack of interest. He's fully aware of this, but the full quote here gives it more context.
自分が何者か分かっている才能のある者は最初から何も望まない。自分が何者か分からない者ほどもがいて勝って何かを証明したいんだよ。僕はただ彼を連れて行ってあげたいだけだ。行けば彼の中で何かが変わる。
While Smile understands himself the best in the cast, his lack of perspective comes from his misunderstanding of other people's ambitions. People work hard for a reason, and he finally understands that. While the show is telling you that you should enjoy the things you do in life, not everyone has that luxury. Some people are stuck in terrible positions, whether it's caused by their own doing or by the political environment that holds people back from picking themselves up by their bootstraps. So you must partake in a competitive culture that promises a decent living if you work hard enough, when living decently should be the bare minimum. And even if you are able to maintain a stable living through a job you don't care about, a happy epiphany isn't going to fix the years of mistakes that seem impossible to untangle. Even worse if the issue is systematic. And good luck trying to change the system in general. Stumbling upon a revelation about yourself and having enough wiggle room to pivot your life for the better is a privilege not everyone has access to. If the industry norm is crazy work hours and deliberate exploitation, Good luck trying to get out of that. Some people never stumble upon their aha moment. Some people double down on their destructive traits. They might even know what they're doing is actively harmful, but will do it anyway because it benefits them. Reality is scary and the world is messed up, and your optimism, dreams, interests, and naivety will be taken advantage of. There's a profit to be made everywhere, especially for the marginalized who are ripe for exploitation. Even seemingly wholesome stuff have incentives and backstories you wouldn't expect. Now, Ping Pong lightly touches on the business side of things through Neptune. Besides Kazuma sacrificing his mental health to maintain his image for the sake of his grandfather's business, Neptune made artificial demand for shoes that promised to make you a better player. And they don't. None of the main characters use these shoes, even Kazuma. This is just a minor detail in the show, but this tackles the core of advertising and consumerism. No matter what sport or hobby, somebody is trying to sell you something. There are people that want you to be ambitious and be better because it makes them rich, and if it means making you feel bad about yourself, then they'll do that. But Ping Pong at least still tackles people's impulse purchases with understanding.
私は中国にいる時からバタフライを履いている。マットもフローリングも靴は買えないよ。
え、本当？買っちゃった。
でもいい靴を履くのはいいこと。みんないい靴履くべき。
That's why Ping Pong to me represents a sort of idealized reality. Peko literally wins against Smile in the final episode with a potentially life-altering knee injury, but as Smile says, a hero surpasses reason. A hero overturns common sense. More than anything, he shines simply, brightly, and happily. Kinda cute, right? A hero isn't a winner per se. A hero is someone who makes Smile smile. There's a hyper-optimism in Ping Pong, where irrecoverable injuries are transcended to reinforce a character's values and the metaphors they represent. For Peko, a person who loves ping pong, an injury or self-loathing isn't gonna stop him from doing what he loves. And with each character, Ping Pong's optimistic narrative says that it's possible to figure out who you are, to figure it out by making mistakes, and having the luxury to make necessary changes in your life. No matter where you fall on this matrix, a better understanding of yourself leads to a better life. At least that's how it's framed in Ping Pong's last episode. After the match, years have passed and we're basically at the story's epilogue. Sakuma stops trying to become something he's not and allows himself to live a different life. He's got a family now, with another kid on the way. Kong is now on the Japanese Olympic team, solidifying that he knows where he belongs. I may be reading too much into this, but this shot where his mom says welcome home during this final match, while it literally means he's reminiscing about his mom, I think this is meant to mean that he's now welcoming Japan as his home. I think it works, but feel free to argue. And Smile is just a chill dude. Despite saying that he hates kids, he's now an elementary school teacher, and he's smiling and laughing outside of Ping Pong now. He's just an overall positive dude.
本当は卓球にかける人生も悪くないと思います。
Beach Guy loves being a fan, and Peko, of course, is living his dream. But what about Kazuma? Where is he? He was cut from the Olympic team due to his poor performance. He laments he'll be just like his father, and this article here reveals that Kazuma's performance was hindered by a fatigue fracture, probably from pushing himself too hard. He says he might just be another mediocre player. Another degree of separation between Kazuma and Peko. Of course, as we know by now, this isn't a bad thing, just a new beginning to Kazuma's life. After all, our perception of talent is subjective, and our love for something shifts over time. That's what self-discovery is all about. We should not be trapped by the dreams and expectations of our younger selves, who lack the perspective and knowledge that your current self has. Our dreams when we were younger are now seen through our older eyes, and we should reassess and adjust ourselves to our best judgment. Some people are like Peko and just end up thriving in the environment they set out for. And that's great. While the Sakumas and Kazumas of the world should, ideally, unburden themselves from the expectations that aren't going to fulfill them. And this isn't a failure, it's a step forward. Being the best or most fulfilled version of you doesn't necessarily mean being the most skilled version of you. There are other ways to win in life that aren't so easily measured. Societal expectations don't always align with who we are, and to never take the opportunity to figure out who you are is a scary reality. So we take the leap. Life is a journey, and we're all just figuring it out.
いいか、ちゃんと練習すればみんな強くなる。これ本当よ。
じゃあ俺も死ぬほど頑張ったら片瀬の月本みたいになれる？
それない。嘘、わからないね。才能どこか眠ってるかもよ。
This just means Kazuma is just going through Sakuma's arc now, and while in the midst of rejecting his own devotion to ping pong, he fears his own mediocrity. Smile reassures him with a line that best sums up the series.
自分はこのまま凡庸な選手で終わってしまうのではないかと。
いいじゃないですか、凡庸。僕割と好きですよ、そういう選手。
I like stories about talent, from the underdogs proving their worth to the greats who loved what they did, whether it's a newfound passion or when that passion becomes an obsession. Character studies, biopics, a character study that I thought was a biopic, inspirational narratives and cautionary tales. There's a ton of stories about the talented and passionate, encompassing all the highs and lows that come with being that sort of person, and there will be many more to come. And out of all these stories that I've referenced throughout this video, Ping Pong manages to be one of my, if not my favorite story about passionate people trying to find the thing to fulfill their lives. Because out of all these stories, it doesn't see talent and passion as a curse or a blessing, but a thing to understand. And it does it in a way that doesn't feel overly sentimental or preachy. The possession or lack of either trait doesn't define who our characters are, and it's just a piece of what makes them whole. Even Peko, the best player of the show, isn't defined by their talent. He's defined by his joy, and it's what ultimately gets him back to playing in the first place. There's more to life than ping pong, but ping pong can still be meaningful. It's a stop and smell the roses narrative whose rose is ping pong, and whether you respond to that rose may take some time and perspective. So by making a sports anime about perspective, it ends up interrogating our perception of talent and mediocrity, how our successes can come from our losses, and how our negativity can sometimes be self-imposed, while untangling the seemingly contradictory idea that higher isn't always better. The goal of being the best may not be the best thing for you. After all, goals are relative, and the winners of a hobby reached the top thanks to arbitrary criteria. It's just a matter of understanding the why of what we do, rather than defaulting to the assumed universal truth that best is best. And finding that perspective may require losing. And by asking us why, it's a show that equally celebrates the ambitious and the content. There's no failure in losing a game, there's only failure in narrow-mindedness. And that's a philosophy I agree with. Bear in mind though, I'm not saying that we should settle for less and never critique anything. Improvement through critique is valuable. It's just a matter of knowing when critique and improvement is appropriate. Calling out bullshit is one thing, but it's another thing to be a dick. I'm sure you've encountered a community or a person that optimized the fun out of a game or hobby, and all they did was drag you down for not being as skilled as them. And as someone who has dabbled in all sorts of creative pursuits, encountering people that perpetuate specific standards that don't align with your goals is a common occurrence I've personally felt. So it's just healthy to ask yourself, why do I do this? What do I get out of it? From the fan art to the essays to the stream doodads I'm doing right now. I find myself at my most fulfilled when I approached a project with a sincere attempt at self-discovery. Like, hey, I like sci-fi, but this sci-fi video game kinda sucks, and I've got a personal history attached with it. Let me figure out why exactly this thing is so goofy in relation to my interests. How do I convey these findings and feelings in a way that feels right to me? And that's really hard. I could spend hours finding the right words or right doodle until everything clicks, for that aha moment. Assuming that moment ever arrives, which feels impossible if you're a perfectionist, there's even an entire movie about the metaphorical purgatory of being an artist, exploring how our ideal selves are in contention with who we really are and the spaces we must interface with. And if you do end up reaching some sort of profound epiphany, it doesn't guarantee any sort of tangible success. So what's there to gain in finding this epiphany? Personally, to better understand ourselves, because I see that desire for an aha moment as an attempt at self-discovery. What is achieved is inherently internal, and this feeling when everything clicks can't be replicated by replicating others or your past successes. You can't discover something new about yourself by retreading old ground, so you gotta go to some scary places, which may include admitting to yourself that, hey, this thing isn't for me. And this admission is its own form of success. And we should not care about expectations that go against our personal growth. Obviously, this isn't a revolutionary new observation. People intuitively know this. It's just hard not to care. It's hard to ignore the context in which all of our hobbies and interests must exist within. We live in social media feeds that thrive on our discontent. Hustle cultures, gig economies, the lure of monetizing your hobbies, romanticizing growth for the sake of growth, and mocking complacency.
Slappe av. Det er du jævlig god på. Du kan slappe av og servere kaffe til du er 50. Jeg vil noe mer!
Get good, find your thing, even if you don't understand what your thing is. Because if you don't, you'll be seen as a failure.
Oh, nothing's wrong with him. He never quite found his thing.
So he's actually kind of a fuck up.
So we just assume the things we're good at equate to things we enjoy and are meant to do.
What do you like?
My job.
What about it?
I'm good at it.
What exactly are you good at?
Spreadsheets mostly.
Do you only like things that you're good at?
Now, I've got no scientific research to back these claims. I've only got observations and characters that explore our relationship with our professions and talents, and I can only speak about how I personally felt about these stories. And I like them because I like relating to them. I like feeling seen. While I can't relate to Whiplash anymore, my younger self felt inspired by how much this movie spoke to me. Those emotions were real. My love for Whiplash reflected a desire to be good at something at the cost of everything, even if the film had the opposite intentions. Talent was everything. And while Whiplash is still one of my favorite movies, I can't connect to it as strongly as my blinded self years ago. Seeing Whiplash as a cautionary tale is different to seeing yourself in it. Don't get me wrong though, I don't want every story to conform to things I can only relate to, obviously, but I do yearn for stories that make me connect as strongly as I did with Whiplash. Stories that make me feel seen with who I am now. And Ping Pong achieves that. It feels so cathartic to resonate with each character, feeling that frustration and aimlessness, losing the luster of something you once enjoyed. But my catharsis doesn't come from becoming better by overcoming these struggles and limitations, but by understanding and accepting these limitations. Accepting that being great isn't necessary, that talent is overrated. And at this current point in time, that's how I feel. That's why I like stories about talent, not because I see myself as talented, but because I see myself in those who try to understand the world through their supposed talents. And Ping Pong being able to do this by juggling both grounded introspection and a hopeful future is nothing short of perfection. There's more to life than table tennis. The question now, though, is, what else is out there? I don't know, who knows? I guess that's where the whole self-discovery thing starts coming in. The earnest desire to figure out who you are and so much more. To take the opportunity to explore new things, to question the things you're comfortable with, and to return to see if anything about yourself changes. It may take a day, or a decade, or never. In all honesty, nothing is guaranteed. You may never figure it out, assuming you even know what to figure out, but it's something worth considering over a blind pursuit at being great. So let's take the chance and try something new. Let's breathe new life within us. Let's just go to the beach. Oh shit. I messed up the white balance on that final shot. I'm not this blue in real life, I swear. Anyway, if you're still watching, thank you for supporting me. Whether you're just binging my videos on YouTube, buying the wallpapers I've made for each video, or on my Twitch channel because you just want to hang out and chill. Oh my god! Who? Wait, what? Ah! Not again! Ah! Knowing that people just listen to my stuff in the background while they do stuff is pretty neat. And huge thanks to the patrons who've gone above and beyond by sustaining me between each video release. I really appreciate it, truly. Speaking of, I'd like to thank these patrons in specific. Thank you to Gabgab, Arita, Kornamari, Sakyo, King Zane Ter, Axon8, Sonar B, Niz, Tutbutt, Beam, Richie Yim, Dan Brown, Sailor Dog, Ratlung, Taboo TV Cat, Enormous98, Sylph, Keo, Skylar, Gulana the Ghost, Parker Murphy, and last but not least, Jaducible. Once again, thank you very much.